Denise, so great to speak to you about this. You know, I'm very passionate about what you're doing. It's very brave what you're doing as well, because it's difficult sometimes to swim against the tide on these issues. How has the response been?
Well, it's not like I'm looking for a pat on the back. I mean, Dan, listen, I disagree with you about a lot of things, so it's quite something that I'm sitting here talking to you
I know.
today.
I know.
Politics are different. We have many different issues. This is completely apolitical for me. But the fact is that since I started talking out about depression 31 years ago, I've kind of always been a little bit of a people pleaser. I've always been worried about covering my back work-wise and stuff. And I haven't ever in 62 years felt as impassioned as I am about this. So to be honest, I am not trying to say that what I am saying is right. I don't know if it is. I am just not prepared to listen to the MSM and narrative, which has still got to have the word deadly and killer in without this being backed up. So I am looking at data, and I've become quite obsessed with it, because if I am going to give my views on Twitter or on a show like Loose Women, whether people agree with the science I'm talking about, that is a science that I agree with, and data. So at the moment, we are a country of 67 million people. Of 67 million, there are 480 in hospital out of 147,000 beds in the United Kingdom. Under 100 are in ICU. So we were told that we were to save the NHS and flatten the curve. The curve couldn't be flatter at the moment. Never before, even when back in lockdown, when we were all sort of doing what we were told, and you know, my husband was one of those who was very worried. Maths is my weakest subject, but I said, to me, the maths don't make sense. And why are we having a rolling news death count? We never have it about cancer. We never have it about heart attacks. So while people come at me and they go, but 3 deaths yesterday is 2 deaths too many. Of course it is, but 500 died yesterday, Dan, of cancer. 500 died today of cancer. They have been doing, and they will do forever, and increasing. 180 people die every day from heart disease. That's going to increase because people are still scared to go to the hospital and to go to A&E. Now, I don't quote Sue from Facebook. I talk to people who are not able to speak out, who are within the National Health Service, who are telling me today. I spoke to a nurse today at a big northern hospital. She said the doctors do not understand what is going on. I'm not speaking for all doctors. I'm speaking to the people I speak to. She told me that her own mental health suffered during the 2017-18 flu epidemic because we had 50,000. In that epidemic, between the 7th of January and the 23rd of January in this country, we lost 23,000 people. Did anyone know? No, they didn't. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I'm not saying this is flu. I know that this virus, Dan, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I am not an anti-vaxxer. I am not a Bill Gates rules the world person. I'm not. I know that coronavirus is a very, very horrible virus, and people die a horrible death. But the point being is, if we are allowing a government to have the power to click their fingers and quarantine somewhere without giving us the facts, there are people with domestic violence being locked down in these communities, rural communities being on the outskirts of, say, Bradford Metropolitan City Council at the moment, who haven't had a coronavirus case since March. They are being locked down, they're losing their jobs. Depression, I'm an ambassador for SANE. Depression has increased twofold, well, twice as many, with clinical depression, anxiety. Suicides are now 20 a day. Domestic violence killings are 5 a week. And on the 19th of August, we had 0 COVID deaths. Was that reported? No. So today we have 15, which has taken over a few days. You can guarantee the mainstream media will be full of that one. And all I'm asking for is perspective. And Dan, can I just say, because I need to get this out.
Yes.
As a public voice and as someone who has spoken openly for many, many years about depression, especially recently because of the book, I've had many people come to me and tell me these stories of how they have had to fight to have an autopsy, fight to have COVID taken off the death certificate because they believed that their dad, for example, died of a 20-year severe lung condition, and that's how the dad died. So I asked the question yesterday, knowing that that Chris Whitty wouldn't get back to me, but it's a question that I would like to ask anyone who knows, that on the government website, it says, this is updated daily and contains information on the deaths of patients who have died in hospitals in England and either tested positive for COVID-19 or where no positive test result was received for COVID-19, but COVID-19 was mentioned on their death certificate. It's a breakdown by region for those where no positive result was received, but COVID-19 was mentioned on their death certificate. I spoke to a radiologist in a big London hospital today, and she told me that during the peak, when people came in presenting, they were put down as a positive coronavirus test result, whether or not they're testing. Now they are coming in, maybe 10 a day, and they are being taken to a little, coronavirus testing place, and they are not being proved to have coronavirus. So how can we possibly trust a government that is putting down all deaths that are suspected as coronavirus to be able to lock down communities when this is based on, in my opinion, false data? And if they know these discussions are happening, tell us the truth. Tell us, just explain that to me. Just
Public
explain
Health
why
England,
they're allowed to put that down.
Public Health England did have to revise down the death toll. They've done that once already. And Matt Hancock, the health secretary, is clearly furious about it. But I think one of the problems that you raised, Denise, is that the government is so terrified of being blamed for any more deaths, they are allowing public opinion to lead them, rather than Boris Johnson coming out publicly and talking about some of the things that you are. I mean, Denise, Birmingham City University news study, 91% of people in England live in a neighbourhood where there hasn't been any official COVID cases for a month.
Dan, in the world, 99.9 people who have tested positive for COVID have survived. That doesn't say as you get blamed for being either a right-wing. I'm a Labour girl, you know that. I'm not a right-wing conspiracy theorist. Dear God, I have find myself agreeing with some people who are righter than I am, but that's because this is not a political issue.
No, it's not about politics.
But the thing is, these people who are believing everything and living in fear, which I understand, is because they've never had a rolling death count before. When I say to people that 616,000 people die every single year in this country, they look at me as if I'm mad. And that's not taking away from the horrendous deaths and people who lost people to COVID. But why are we only talking and why are we only prioritizing COVID deaths when actually the other day, when no people died, 500 still died of cancer? And a very outspoken voice, Professor Carol Sikora, has also said that we are now going to be losing thousands and thousands and thousands of people because of undiagnosed cancers, some of whom are my friends who can't get a test. My friend was diagnosed Parkinson's in January. He's been told he's on a 50-week waiting list on the NHS for his Parkinson's because of the backlog, because of the virus.
Well, there is a ticking cancer time bomb in this country. Carol Sikora has been pointing it out for a very long time. I asked the Prime Minister about it. He insisted that anyone who needed life-saving cancer treatment would get it. But unfortunately, as far as I can tell, that isn't happening. Now, today, Denise, we learn that the government are set to U-turn on this decision about wearing masks in school. And actually, this comes even though the Department for Education has said that the misuse of masks by children in schools could actually increase the risk of transmission. And I don't know about you, but I ask the question, what on earth are we going to be doing to the mental health of our poor kids, Generation Corona, who are going to be living in constant terror and fear?